Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another live episode of Project Onward Artists at Home. I'm your host, Alex Oliver. Really excited to bring you today's installment with one of Project Onward's most prolific artists, Mr. William Douglas. We, of course, know him around the studio as Bill. He has done a stunning amount of work in all different mediums and has really a pretty interesting story and a journey to Project Onward that I'm really excited to get into with him. So give me just one moment to invite him online to join us, and we'll get started. Looks like we may be waiting for him to get online still, but I'll take a moment, of course, to encourage you to go to projectonward.org and brush up on Bill's profile and look through some of his work, because it's all really fantastic. And again, he works in a variety of mediums. Lately it's been colored pencil, but done a lot of painting, done a lot of sculpting. He works with found objects, which is something that he took an interest in very early on, and has really been, his work has been very much informed by his struggles and with substance abuse and mental illness and a lot of stuff just with his personal life. And it looks like he has joined us. And I'm going to go ahead and invite him to the interview. That's at William C. Douglas Art on Instagram, by the way. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Fantastic. Let me adjust my volume here real quick. Can you see and hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Oh yeah. It's nice to be number 13.
Lucky number 13. I didn't even consider that. Well, I mean, let's get right into it, because you have dealt with your share of bad luck throughout your life. And I know that that's been a major, you've managed to turn that into some really incredible artwork. And I want to start at the beginning, and which is always a good place to start with any of the artists. But you are a lot of the artists I've spoken to, they're born and raised in Chicago, but you are from Knoxville, Tennessee. Is that right?
Yeah. I moved here in 1995.
All right, great. Well, let's go back to life in Knoxville, because I know you went to school there. You come from a kind of a rich legacy of family members who have done all different kinds of crafts and folk art and things like that. Can you tell us
Yeah.
about some of your early inspiration?
Yeah, my great grandmother and my mother were both, and my great aunt were all quilt makers. And my great aunt, she was a published quilt maker. She was in a book and in a show
Wow.
at the University of Tennessee, at the gallery near there. And she was in a quilt show. And then I had an uncle who made violins.
Wow.
So I was always, interested in that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh. Great. So I mean, obviously, there are a variety of different mediums there, but I know that you work a lot. You like to work a lot with your hands, and you like to incorporate a lot of different materials and found objects and things. So what was it that first kind of got you interested in making art? When do you recall your beginnings as an artist?
Well, my mom told me that as soon as I was like 3 years old, I was able to hold a pencil and I would start drawing then. But I don't remember that. But I remember as a kid going in the woods and playing with sticks and building things out of them and collecting moss and really nice rocks and things like that, that I had to keep outside. My mom didn't want me to bring them inside, because they were dirty.
But you were able to find inspiration all around you, it sounds like.
Yeah. And then I'd go home and I'd look at my comic books and draw comic books.
Were your parents always pretty encouraging of your artistic endeavors?
Yeah, they were. They were. They didn't understand it completely, but they were very supportive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, tell us about going to school in Tennessee.
Okay. Well, I did an undergrad at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
Uh-huh.
I went there for 8 years because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I know I wanted to do art. And it gave me time to be able to, you know, do art,
Yeah.
be in school that long. And then in 95, I came to Chicago, and I went to the University of Illinois Chicago.
I see.
Was a good school too.
And you've been here ever since, huh?
Yeah, I've been here ever since '95.
I see. Now I know, like a lot of our others, you're also pretty heavily involved with Thresholds, which is, of course, a wonderful organization that anyone who's seen an interview in this series probably knows about at this point. But were you involved with Thresholds before you discovered Project Onward?
Yeah. In 2012, I had kind of a mental breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to quit my job. I was a teaching assistant at a therapeutic day school, and it was very stressful. You know, sometimes I had to restrain kids and stuff like that. And then I went to Thresholds and started doing art with Kathy Osler,
Mm-hmm.
who introduced me to Project Onward.
I see. So what was your first impression of Project Onward?
Oh, I loved it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, full of great artists who work hard, and I even have my collection of art to show you that I have of different artists from Project Onward.
Oh, fantastic. Well, who are some of your favorites? Who do you most of Project? I'm always really curious to hear more about the dynamic between artists there. Oh, here we've got a Ruby Bradford, it would appear.
Yeah, it is. It's a Ruby Bradford ornament.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then I have here the smallest Sheila Smith painting in the world.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, but I told her it's the only one I could afford. And then this is one of the newer artists to Project Onward is Sherelle Booker.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
And that's a bee covered with pollen, you know, a bee's butt
Excellent.
sticking out of a flower, you know, because they fall asleep inside the flowers.
Yeah.
And then I've got, this is one that I got Fernando. I commissioned him to do for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, he normally doesn't do stuff like that, but I talked him into it.
Excellent. Well, always nice to, get outside your comfort zone a little there.
Yeah. And then the last one is a Ken Bortman piece.
Oh, that's
called Kimono,
Uh-huh.
which is a squashed oil can, but it looks like a kimono, you know, one of those Japanese dresses.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it.
Yeah.
Way cool. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's so great that you all are just kind of fans of each other's work and all very encouraging, always able to offer advice. Bill, you seem to be a bit of the elder statesman around there. I know that you're definitely someone that a lot of the artists have very close personal relationships with. And you have been known to take a lot of them under your wing and really kind of help.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I feel like a kind of, you know, at first I kind of felt, well, you know, here I am, this guy, he's been in school, you know, and he's, you know, kind of, I thought I was kind of like an outsider at first, but everybody there was so welcoming that you can't feel that for very long.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, I do think, they all certainly have a lot of their own share of adversity to face with mental health. But
Yeah.
A lot of the artists I've interviewed, especially, they're all a bit younger. Most of them live at home and haven't been through quite as much in their personal life as you have. And I'd like to discuss for a moment, and of course we don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but I know you've dealt with some drug abuse and
Yeah.
you went through a divorce. And again, you don't have to go into detail, but I would like to know how you think that may have affected your work.
Well, in 2012, when I was diagnosed
Mm-hmm.
with paranoid schizophrenia and major depression, I kind of had a mental breakdown, is what led up to it. And I had to quit my job, and I had divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, and my mom died of cancer, and my dad died right after her. So it was a lot of tragedy there at once. And I still made art, But Kathy, she's the one who saved my life because she found me when I had my stroke.
Hmm.
Because I was doing drugs and doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing, and I was not living right, and I had a stroke. And Kathy found me, and she before that she brought me into Project Onward and brought me into her art group. Yeah, what were you asking me? I'm sorry if I
No,
went on.
that's all right. You definitely helped fill in some of the blanks there, and I do want to reiterate to people. I mean, this was all fairly recent. I mean, this was really all kind of last decade. You
Yeah,
at the
2000,
beginning of the decade went through your divorce and bankruptcy, and that your diagnosis is pretty recent too, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
2012.
So
Yeah.
prior to that, I mean, did you think that perhaps you did have you were suffering from some kind of mental illness, but didn't have a way to describe it or a name to put with it?
Well, I kind of like hid behind alcohol back in those days.
I see.
I drank a lot, and I don't drink like that anymore, thank God.
Yeah.
And I don't do drugs anymore. I've been clean for 2 years now of opioids.
Fantastic.
And when I had the stroke, I was paralyzed on my right side from my arm to my leg, and I couldn't move them.
And that was very recent. That was just last year, wasn't it? Or 2 years
That
ago?
was last year,
Yeah.
yeah. I couldn't even go to the bathroom on my own.
That's
I had
incredible.
to do rehab.
I remember when you went through that because I was getting updates from Whitney and Robin and some of the other people at Project Onward. Um, and you basically relearned how to make art with your left hand, right?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
That's incredible. Can
I
you tell us about that? I mean, because the stuff you're doing post stroke is incredible and just as amazing as your work prior. Uh, how much of a strenuous, struggle was it to just essentially relearn how to do art, to train yourself to use your non-dominant hand?
It was really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but you know what? There was a drive in me to walk again, to use my arm again, which I've yet to be able to use my arm as much as I'd like to. So that's why I became left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
There was an even bigger drive to do art. So
Yeah. I suspect a lot of people would have just kind of thrown in the towel at that point and been like, well, that's the end of my art career.
I felt really sorry for myself there for a while. When I first thought I was going to be uh, laying there in a bed, not able to go to the bathroom by myself or anything, and not able to move or do art, I really felt sorry for myself. But you know what? As soon as I realized that I could get something back with therapy, I became kind of more emboldened with it.
Sure. Did you feel
Decided I'm going to make this comeback.
Did you feel like, in a way, it might have even been kind of you might have welcomed the challenge a little bit? I mean, it might have helped even, it might have helped you explore some avenues of art making that you might have never even considered before?
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. I looked at what I did. I started looking at work by Warhol and work by Matisse and Picasso, and I started doing copies of their work, especially Matisse.
Mm-hmm.
Because Matisse, in his older years, he was kind of crippled, and he did cutouts. So I did cutouts for a while. I did cutouts and watercolors. That's what I did to come back
See.
and learn my left hand.
Wow, fantastic. Well, yeah, I'm really glad to hear that didn't stop you. I'm sure it would take a lot more than that to stop you because, as I mentioned at the top of this segment, you are one of the most prolific artists at Project Onward. I mean, I read somewhere that you estimate your body of work to be upwards of 10,000 pieces, which
Yeah.
which is just insane. But I mean, you've been doing it for quite some time, and
Yeah.
you obviously are just compelled to make it. I think it's probably just something you really have no control over. You're always working on stuff, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, some of those pieces are not around anymore, but I still keep making them though. After my stroke, I lost everything and had to let my place go, because I couldn't move and I thought I was going to be crippled.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I lost a lot of work that way. And then when I was younger, I lost the work in a fire. I was working in my studio. I was working with plastic, and a fire started, and I destroyed some work. But
Well,
yeah,
that kind of brings me to a question that I like to ask a lot of the artists, which is how difficult is it for you to kind of move on to the next project when you're done? Because it sounds like, I mean, with everything that you've created, and it sounds like you've probably lost more work than a lot of other artists have even created. Do you feel like you're pretty good at just deciding something's done and moving on and focusing on the next thing? Or is
yeah.
it hard for you to kind of let go of projects you've been working on?
Oh, it's really easy for me to let go because the next thing I get excited about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Get really excited about doing something else. Even some pieces I almost wish I'd kept, but then I think, well, you know what? I'll just make something even better. Or at least that's what I tell myself.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Well, Whitney pointed out that you have many dedicated collectors too. So,
Yeah.
did uh, did you have these prior to Project Onward, or did a lot of people discover your work after you joined
Well,
Project Onward?
a lot of people discovered me after Project Onward.
Uh-huh.
I mean, before then, I when I got out of school at UIC, um, I didn't do anything other than paint houses.
Wow.
Well, I did art, but I didn't do it for a gallery or for to sell or anything like that. I just did it because I loved doing it. And then I got the job at the therapeutic day school, um, and then the rest of that stuff kind of happened.
Sure. Well, that's fantastic. And I think that's a point that maybe a lot of people don't necessarily understand about Project Onward is that um, not only is it a really fun and safe environment for these artists to come together and create work, but it's also just a great way for you all to market yourselves and sell your work and helps open you up to these incredible new audiences. And I think that's definitely one of the most important aspects of what they do because their goal is to help every artist kind of make a living, making art.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been hard. This pandemic thing. I usually do art shows. Like Thresholds does one in up in Forest Park, and we do one in Ravenswood, and all those have been canceled. But thanks to Project Onward, I've been making a little bit of money to be able to get by.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Well, good. Now, Robin wants to know a little bit more about your sculptures. I mentioned earlier that you work in a variety of mediums. Uh,
yeah.
so tell us a little bit more about some of your 3D work, some of your sculptures.
Well, I don't have very many of them around because I've sold most of them.
Uh-huh.
But at one time, I worked in cardboard, which I can't really do anymore. But I used to make like Jaws. I made Jaws chasing that boat,
Oh, excellent.
Gilligan's Island boat, and things like that. And I did wood sculptures and things like that. But right now, I'm working on a skull. I could show you.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a side view of it. The back of it is I like a lot too.
Wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah, and then yeah, I'm hoping I could hold it up.
Yeah, that looks great. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a plastic football for the in the nose there?
Yeah, it's a football that says 2020 census on it.
Incredible.
Yeah, I was naming this one. This one is Plague. And
Uh-huh.
I've got another one I call Pestilence.
Wonderful.
So Plague and Pestilence. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those yet, but
Yeah. Well, it sounds
uh,
like they might be somewhat inspired by our current situation in the grips of the pandemic. So let's talk about that because I do like to know how it's affected everyone. And obviously, you've stayed very busy and you've been working
yeah.
a lot from home. But do you find that it's more difficult to find inspiration during the pandemic?
Well, I kind of went into this with the right framework. I was kind of like stocked up for a heavy winter.
Ah,
When I moved into my place in July, I started I stocked up on art supplies and food and stuff like that. So I was ready for, a rough winter.
Hmm.
And we didn't really have that. So this time has been pretty good for me to get work done. It's been very conducive to working.
Well, good. I'm glad. Now, how about as far as your personal life goes, though? I mean, I know it's you do like being around other people and other artists, and you don't get to see as many people now because so many of us are being cautious and staying at home. Do you feel
Yeah,
like that's I mean, obviously you're no stranger to adversity, and
yeah.
you've dealt with a lot of things in your personal life, but this specifically, are you finding ways to kind of keep yourself motivated and stay positive throughout this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I talk to Ricky every day. I talk to Ruby every day.
Okay.
Uh, I talk to Mike Pocious every day.
Hmm.
Uh, I talk to Maureen and Dave at least once a week or something like that. And I see Fern on a regular basis and Sherelle.
Excellent.
Yeah. And they're very helpful to me. I mean, it's not just me reaching out to them. They come and they actually help me do stuff, that I normally can't do
Oh, good.
because of my arm.
I'm glad you still got a support system in place there, then. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Whitney pointed out that you got a lot of people at PO who love you. That's for sure.
Oh, I love them too. I love Project Onward. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty amazing place. I want to talk a little bit more about some of your more recognizable pieces. Certainly, one of the things that caught my eye when I first got involved with Project Onward, because a ton of these are hanging around the studio. You've got a lot of pieces where you kind of start with a center focal point of a face, and then you
Yeah.
kind of build. It's generally colored pencil, isn't it? Kind of around that.
Well, that and ink pen.
An ink pen, okay. And I know I think I read somewhere that started initially as a way to sort of combat a creative drought you were having. You kind of really were having trouble coming up with some ideas, so you started by just pasting this face in the middle of a paper or a canvas,
Yeah.
and then just kind of building around it. So what's that process like?
With that, I just let intuition and instinct take over.
Hmm.
And it's usually very nature based and very geometric.
Yeah,
Why exactly?
right.
Uh, I'm a real big fan of nature. Nature is one of my favorite things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty evident in your work. Now, do you generally have a pretty intuitive approach to making things, or do you usually have a pretty specific idea when you start a piece, how you want it to look at the end?
I usually, it depends on the piece, really.
Hmm.
Like with the Bubbly Creek pieces, the big pieces, the geometric pieces, I'll kind of like see what they look like before I even finish it, because I'll have it all planned out in my head, and then I'll collect pictures, to what I can do of the different animals, and try to line things up geometrically.
Oh man, you mentioned the Bubbly Creek piece. That was one that I really enjoyed too. If I'm not mistaken, that was part of the that floating museum exhibit, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done a lot of pieces that I named Bubbly Creek
Yeah,
because of the Bubbly
those
Creek
those
right
are
by Project Onward.
right. Those are some of my favorites. Well,
Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about the floating museum, and maybe uh, if there are some other showcases or exhibits or galleries that you've been a part of that really stand out. I'd like to know more about the floating museum. Robin is chiming in, and she'd also like to hear about it. But tell us
yeah.
about some other experiences that you've been part of that were really exciting for you.
Well, we took a trip to Springfield one year,
Hmm.
and we went to the governor's mansion and everything, and hung out there and had pizza, and the guys were all there. Ricky was there, and Fern, and everybody, and it was just a good time of social get together, kind of like we did with the Brushwood Forest Preserve.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that show may still be up. I don't know,
Huh.
but we all went out there and met with them, and walked through the woods and stuff like that. It was a good time.
Oh, excellent. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, now what have you been? Do you have some more things around the around your place that you can show us? We're going to see a piece behind you. Tell us about that one.
Oh yeah, yeah. This one right here. This is a Black Lives Matter piece.
Oh, excellent.
What I did was I colored in all different skin tones,
Wow.
and then I gave her hair red, white, and blue, and then I wrote Black Lives Matter over there because Black lives are in danger, you know, and
Absolutely.
stars, and did a rainbow on the sides and everything, and uh, I was just thinking about inclusion, you know.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And this is one. This is a COVID piece.
Mm-hmm.
1918 was when they had swine flu, and then 2020 is the COVID.
Wow.
And then I've also got 541, which is just Indians plague, and 1346, which was the bubonic plague, and 1981, which was AIDS.
Wow. Yeah. Certainly some pretty grim parallels between all of those events, and you did a
Yeah.
pretty good job of capturing it in that piece, Bill. That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one I just started. It's kind of like a tableau.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well you can see it, but it's a skull and a fishbowl and some flowers and a clock.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
what I'm currently working on besides the skull.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of that. I mean, I imagine that's going to wind up being a pretty colorful piece, huh?
Oh, it's going to be very colorful. Yeah, I'm going to load the color onto it.
Yeah.
I love lots of color. I love things to be flat
Mm-hmm.
and right up in your face and colorful.
Fantastic.
Yeah. This one right here, this has got kind of like me, a picture of me as a cat, but the time bomb is a stroke.
Uh-huh.
And I listed all the things that I went through: bankruptcy, divorce, drugs, death, foreclosure, depression. And then I've got escape down here, but there's no way to escape. So it's just kind of talking about what happened to me a little bit.
Wow. That's amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Now I know you address a lot of themes in your work. Whitney pointed out that you've got that life and death are kind of central themes that you like to explore.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how those have been incorporated into some of your work?
Yeah.
Because that's some pretty heavy subject matter, but you clearly aren't afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, I've got this one right here. This is an old piece I did
Mm-hmm.
of mountains and trees, and we're all looking at it from above.
Yeah.
Got the moon up there, and the birds are up in the trees, and then you got all these tombstones around it. I used to do lots and lots of tombstones.
I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this you kind of exploring your own mortality a bit?
Yeah, yeah. I've done ones where I've had dreams. Dreams are a big important part of my early work
Uh-huh.
up until my stroke. I don't dream like I used to since I had my stroke.
Interesting.
But I used to dream every night, and vivid dreams, and I would write them down in the book. So I'm on my third volume of dream books, and I make art out of the dreams, but I haven't been dreaming so much anymore.
I see.
But I would have dreams about dying,
Mm-hmm.
and I was making tombstones for myself for when I would die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's some heavy subject matter, but I'm glad that you were able again to find inspiration in it and turn it into some really spectacular work.
Oh, thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Well, on a lighter note, you mentioned earlier how from an early age, comic books were a pretty big inspiration for you.
Yeah.
And is that a style that you've worked in at all? That more comic kind of narrative, illustrated style?
Um. Well, I don't do a lot of shading,
Uh-huh.
and I don't do a lot of perspective. Uh, I really don't do any, to tell you the truth. I don't know why. I'm just not really attracted to that. I like things just right up front, and maybe that's something from television or something. I'm not sure,
Sure.
but it's a design kind of thing that I like. You know?
Yeah. Well, Leisha Rune pointed out that your work is so diverse, and this is a really good question. But since you are known for working in so many different mediums and not really sticking to one, when you have an idea for for a piece, do you already know, as far as the content goes, the message or the
Yeah.
intent behind the piece? Do you know if it's going to be a painting or a drawing or a
Oh,
sculpture?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's the hardest part, but it's also the easiest part is the medium.
Sure.
Once you get to the medium, you got to figure out the different problems that come with each medium, especially being left-handed and still working out my hand.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. So I can't really cut lines as good as I used to, or measure things as well as I used to.
Which medium do you think has been the easiest to jump back into since you've had to start using your other hand?
Probably colored pencil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a lot of work, and my arm gets tired, but I get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, Bill, I want to move on to another topic that, if everyone will excuse me, is just going to be for my own selfish enjoyment, if you'll indulge me, because anytime we've talked before, we've talked about music because we both have pretty similar taste when it comes to that. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about it, but I will relate it to your art and to your process a bit by asking what kind of environment you like to have when you're making art. Do you usually have music playing?
Yeah, I have it loud.
I'm sorry, you have what?
I have the music
You
loud.
have it loud. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
What do you generally like to listen to when you're working on art?
well, I like to listen to the Jesus Lizard and this band called Off,
Sure. Yeah, I know.
Motion Point, and uh, let's see.
That's Keith Morris's current project
Yeah. That's his project. Yeah,
from Black Flag.
and I like to listen to classical too. I like every kind of music that you can think of.
Yeah, sure. But
Yeah.
you're pretty partial to some of the noisier stuff, huh?
Oh yeah. Definitely.
That have you? Oh, unless George can hear it, is what.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
So yeah, because he's usually got his headphones on, so he probably doesn't want anything bleeding through there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, George has got his own kind of music, he listens to. We all do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, what was it that you found so appealing about like punk music and noise rock? I mean, you talk about bands like Jesus Lizard. I mean, it doesn't really get more abrasive than that. Is there something that you relate to in the music?
Just the energy and the excitement of it.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
inspires me. And so can Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, or Choral Prelude by Bach or Beethoven. Just the energy and the excitement of that.
yeah.
It just tributes.
They're all very dynamic too. Everything you do.
Yeah, very dynamic.
There
Yeah,
are very quiet moments and there are very loud moments, whether it's the classical music or the punk music.
yeah,
Which is part of the reason why I love all that stuff so much too. That's excellent, and really, that's kind of reflected in your art. I mean, you've got the light, you've got the dark, you've got it. It conveys all different kinds of moods. It's really pretty amazing.
yeah. I'm past the dark stuff though. I've done too much of that. It's all. It's going to be cats smelling flowers and things like that. Going to be.
Fantastic. Yeah, we're ready for it. Well,
Yeah.
what's your workspace like at home? What kind of environment are you working in there, if you don't mind Describe.
Well, I've got a table in the kitchen,
Hmm.
and then one of the volunteers for PO, Chris Newman, built me a table so I could do sculpture outside because I was working on some bigger pieces.
Sure. Well, and I know you draw a lot of inspiration from nature too, so it must be nice working outside.
Oh yeah, it is. It's very nice. Yeah, yeah, and I got a nice back porch.
Excellent. Now, how do you go about, do you still incorporate a lot of found objects into your work? How do you go about discovering these things?
Oh yeah.
Will you go
Well,
out with a specific mission to find objects for your work?
yeah. Well, you know what happened when I first moved to Chicago? I lived in Pilsen over on 22nd and Cullerton. And
Hmm.
then I moved to 18th and Halstead, still in Pilsen.
Hmm.
But, I just noticed how kind of dirty it was. How people would leave trash laying on the sidewalk and stuff like that.
Sure.
So what I would do is I would pick up some things that I could use for art, to use as sculptures.
Hmm.
Because I would always find some kind of cool stuff, and it reminded me of like collecting sticks and stones and stuff like that when I was a kid. But I've found things like playing cards, and I just did a sculpture using Legos,
Hmm.
found Legos that I found over 25 years ago, to now. But you can find some pretty cool stuff sometimes.
Excellent. Yeah, I would imagine so, particularly in the city. How about when I mean, you said you moved to Chicago in 95, was that right?
Yeah,
So, and prior to that, did you live in Knoxville?
yeah.
Okay. That's not as big a city, but it's still a metropolitan area. Were you able to find a lot of inspiration around Knoxville and down south? And
Well,
how was it different? Was it kind of a different experience as far as what kind of art you were making?
it was kind of I had a studio out in the woods I could do pretty much anything in.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that was pretty cool. And I'd be out in nature, and like sometimes I'd see a field mouse run across the floor or something like that, or it was very nature oriented.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Well, based on what I've read about you, Bill, you seem to
yeah.
have a very good understanding and appreciation for the legacy of outsider art and folk art. And I would imagine it must be kind of a thrill for you to help kind of carry that torch and be such an important part of it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about how other outsider artists specifically have influenced you, and maybe if there are some examples of artists that you find particular inspiration from?
Well, if I had to think of any artist, I would think of Project Onward artists.
Excellent.
You know,
Uh-huh.
like I think about like Fernando has like a certain kind of skill that is just intuitive, and it's just very. It reminds me of Robert Crumb a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
definitely see that. Hmm.
yeah, and he's very talented. And then you got young people like Sherelle, who show a lot of promise, you know, and there are so many different. My favorite artist probably there would maybe be. It'd have to be either Ricky or maybe Adam if I had to pick a favorite. Only because
Tough call. I'm a big fan of both of them as well.
well, Adam is such a worker.
Uh-huh.
I did. Okay, so I did probably 10,000 pieces that have been small, kind of like pieces like magazines that I would take out pictures and I would write "I love you, Bill" on them and stuff like that, and where I would white out the male or something because I was interested in only looking at the female in the picture, back in those days when I was younger.
Hmm.
Um, but he's done actual, pieces.
Yeah. Well, I know one of Adam's goals is to draw everything. That's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
he'll do it.
Which he's well on his way to doing. I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty amazing the stuff he's able to crank out. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ricky can make anything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ricky's like the Jano and RJ brothers, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can make pretty much anything. They can paint, they can draw, you know. It's just amazing.
It's such eclectic work too. I mean, no two artists are
Yeah.
similar. It's all so wildly different. So I would imagine that's just a constant wellspring of inspiration being around that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's fun to go around and look at what people are doing every once in a while, you
Yeah,
know.
fantastic. Well, I know I read that when you were in school, you would kind of specifically avoid some of the art classes because you didn't
Yeah.
really want it. You didn't want it to influence your style too much. You wanted to kind of maintain that independent, intuitive style of making art. Is
I
that?
was really happy with the way I could draw when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
And the type of art I was doing, I was happy with then. And then when I went into school, I studied printmaking and ceramics, and I stayed away from. I didn't really study drawing classes or anything like that. That I felt, you know, wasn't necessary.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how to do perspective, and I don't know how to do shading and things like that. And I think one of these days I'll try to learn it. But I'm happy with the way I do things, to tell you the truth.
I mean, it's definitely resulted in your own very distinct style. That's for sure. So if that was your goal, then you nailed it for sure.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Speaking of goals, I know also in your bio here it says that one of your ultimate goals, and this is probably written a while ago, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd like to have a piece hanging in a museum. Has that happened yet, or is that still on your list of goals?
Well, I'd like to have a permanent piece in a museum.
Is there a specific museum that you would especially mean a lot to have your piece hanging in?
Well, I'd love it to be any museum, really, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about doing what Warhol did, you know, donating a piece. He donated a piece and then they turned him down.
Wow.
If they turn him down, they definitely turn me down too, you know.
Well, I mean, I think you've certainly got what it takes.
Well, thank you.
Any museum, I think, will be proud to display your work. It's going to happen eventually, and you continue to, again, after everything you've been through, you continue to work just as hard and create just as innovative work, and you show no signs of slowing down. So it's gonna, and you continue to build your fan base. It's yeah, it's almost certainly going to happen for you eventually, Bill. I think that's a fantastic goal, and
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that and success for Project Onward, you know. That's my main goal.
Sure.
Success for Project Onward.
Yeah. Well, Whitney pointed out you've got way more talent than Warhol.
Oh.
She's not a huge fan of the pop art, but
okay.
That's all very subjective, of course. But
yeah, I only dabble in that a little bit, you know.
Yeah. But no, your stuff is fantastic. So let's see. Allie pointed out that you had some work in the Winter Museum, not a permanent installation, of course, but that must have been a thrill.
Yeah, that was great. We went over there as a group, and we had a great time.
Yeah, I've never been there before, but it looks like a lot of fun, and it definitely seems like Project Onward's work would complement it well.
Yeah. They gave us a wall, and we filled it up, and everything looked great. You know, it fit right in there. I don't see why they didn't just keep it, you know?
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll get you back in there again. I think that that was definitely a perfect marriage there, Wonder Museum and Project Onward. Nancy pointed out that you're having a solo show at Project Onward. When's that going down?
Well, because of COVID, we've had to kind of push it back. And some of the stuff that I need to do, I kind of need to be at Project Onward to get supplies and stuff. They've been good about bringing me stuff.
Yeah.
There's some things I need to try to get to do certain things, you know, like sculpture and like do a Bubbly Creek piece.
Oh, fantastic. But you've been thinking a lot about, with the stuff you've been making lately, what you might want to feature in that show?
Yeah. I don't really have anything here. I still got a bunch of work I could show you, but I don't have anything. I've given it all to Project Onward.
Oh, great. Well, I mean, yeah, I definitely want to cruise through some more of that work, but first I want to just point out that, like you said, Project Onward's been so great about still encouraging and supporting the artists and providing you with supplies and
Yeah.
picking up and dropping off things. In fact, one of our wonderful volunteers, Michelle, is there right now,
Yeah, Matt.
providing her phone for you to conduct this interview on, which we really appreciate. And
Yeah.
it's just it's so cool and so inspiring. And I'm you seem to really appreciate that, Bill. And I think that's
Well,
wonderful.
I do. I can't thank Michelle and Matt enough, and you, for doing this.
Oh man, it's our pleasure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Is Matt there too today?
Yeah, he's here.
Excellent. All right. Well, shout out to Matt and Michelle. Thanks so much for your help today, guys. Well, Bill, I want to take a moment. I definitely want to look through more of your work, but first I want to throw it to our viewers and see if anyone else has any questions for you. Everyone's been really engaged during this interview and has been adding a lot of comments. But if anyone has any specific questions they'd like to ask Bill, now's the time. Instagram's going to boot us here in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Well, while they think of questions, why don't we go ahead and peruse through some more of that work, if you wouldn't mind showing us.
Oh, okay. That one, I don't know about that one. This is another COVID piece right here. With the smiley face with 19 for the eyes and then a mask.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
There's a guy on there with a cat because I'm thinking that when this is over, I want to get my cat.
Have you seen Sherelle's latest sculpture?
Oh, yeah. This doesn't come near to that one.
They definitely have similar vibes, though. That's really cool.
Yeah, that one of Sherelle's is just horrific.
Yeah.
This is another one with a mask.
Oh, wow.
And it shows two nurses down in the bottom of the mask. So it's kind of like looking down on a patient,
Yeah, wow. That's really incredible, Bill.
Oh, thanks.
I'd like to see some of these on some masks, actually. Maybe Project Onward can add that to their store at some point.
Oh, yeah. I've got plenty of work, that's for sure. And this is an old piece here. This has got the blue cat, and it's got the deer.
Uh-huh.
The deer is right here.
Uh-huh.
And there's the blue cat. And then Mother Nature and flowers and stuff. And then here's an egg. And here's a tombstone. So it's about birth and death and about goals and identity and things like that, and nature.
Fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So Whitney threw a quick question out there. I actually saw Robin mention it earlier too, but they want to know a little bit more about the "I Love You, Bill" series and which.
Oh yeah, well I've got one here.
Yeah, and that actually relates to the work I mentioned earlier, where you kind of start with just. Okay. This is more of a collage kind of thing. I see.
Yeah, this is a big "I Love You, Bill."
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's got old girlfriends on there.
Uh-huh.
And different pictures of different women, all saying "I love you, Bill." When I was 16, I did that to my posters.
Uh-huh.
I would have the model say "I love you, Bill" on it.
I see.
And so that's where I started at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I felt it's kind of silly now, but it's still, I've been doing it for so long, it's just kind of nice to do, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so good.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an enduring series, and I know you have a lot of fans of it. I can't help but think of every time I think of the "I Love You, Bill." Anytime I see a piece of yours with that, I always think of that song "Wedding Bell Blues" by the Fifth Dimension. You remember that one?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Would you marry me, Bill? I think.
Yeah.
So let's see. Kate Luther Art says your work has such a gorgeous pattern, like quality. What inspires you to create your drawings in that manner? The pattern, because yeah, she's right. You do have a lot of patterns, and there's kind of symmetrical quality to a lot of them, and a lot of recurring
Yeah. Uh,
themes.
Let me just show you these two pieces here.
Sure.
This one here has got wallpaper pattern, and it's got a frame around it. And then there's the rug on which she's sitting,
Uh-huh.
and part of that, and the radio itself too.
Wow.
If you can see the radio.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, what it is, I like to have design in there too. Lots of beautiful design.
Sure.
And I love doing backdrops like that because I love that element of design in there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always have like that, you know?
Well, this is, relates, of course, to Project Onward's most recent show, which is the Repeat, 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 which is has a lot of stuff featured in it that has a lot of these repetitive forms.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm really actually excited to ask one of the artists then, because I know in the sort of press release that was put out for it, it describes it as sometimes it can be kind of a nervous compulsion, or sometimes it can be a very self-soothing therapeutic thing. Which, if you had to pick one of those when you're doing these patterns in your work, do you think it's more of just something that is almost like this frantic energy that you have to get out, or it's something that you find almost sort of meditative?
Well, kind of a combination of the two, but mostly meditative, kind of like relaxing.
I see.
But sometimes I'll get excited about a piece and I'll start working on it feverishly,
Yeah.
you know, and it'll end up being therapeutic, you know, just because it depends on the mood I'm in. You know, if I need to relax real bad and get my mind off of things, if I work on something hard enough, I can do that, you know.
Sure. Sure. Wow. Well, Whitney pointed out link in bio for that show, so definitely go check it out and decide for yourself what kind of piece it is. All right, what are we looking at here, Bill?
Oh, this is supposed to be Marlena or Lauren Bacall
Oh, excellent.
smoking a cigarette.
Uh-huh.
And she's looking, you know, she's not being looked at. She's looking at herself. You know, she's watching herself,
Wow.
you know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So she's not being looked at. She's more just kind of like just thinking, you know?
Wow, that's really amazing. A lot of really great use of light and different kind of patterns with the shirt and with the different layers of color in the background.
Oh, thank you.
That,
Thank you.
yeah, that's all is really a stunning piece. It really commands your attention. I love it. The green eyes, of course, just jump right out at you. But that, of course, was
One of the new ones.
Lauren Bacall in real life. Definitely had that effect on people.
Oh, boy, did she ever. And Bogart, too, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that a scene from a specific movie or something that she was in, or
I think it was from either the Maltese Falcon or one of those.
I see. Now Whitney's pointing out this was a post-stroke piece, wasn't it? You did that
Yeah,
with
yeah.
left hand.
Yeah, done with the left hand. Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
Yeah, you should be
Well,
very
thank
proud of
you.
that. That's really wonderful. Well, Bill, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, Instagram will boot us after an hour, and I could talk to you all day. But before we wrap things up, I would just like to know if there's, actually, first, one of the more important questions that I always ask is what kind of advice you'd like to offer other artists during this time, especially when so many are struggling to find motivation to work. I know you're always happy to offer advice, and a lot of the other artists look to you for advice. So now, if you would please just tell us what kind of advice you would offer them.
The most important thing I tell people is to find a way to keep working.
Mm-hmm.
You know, find a way to where if you're not working on a piece, you're working in your sketchbook, or you're doing sketches, or you're reading about art, or you're watching something about art, or watching something that is art. You know, I think all of those and listening to music, you know, music is very inspirational to me. Um, I think all those things kind of contribute to my uh, making art.
Hmm. Excellent. Well, Bill, is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, just that I mentioned to you earlier, I think we ought to start having some patrons on this show too, where you interview patrons and they show you their collection,
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think
Yeah, 'cause I showed you my collection, and it's just my beginning. I am beginning it again because I lost it at my old place, but I'm starting my collection again.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Everybody should start a collection.
that's one of the big reasons why everyone tunes in, is because they just want to see the work, and
Yeah,
that's really cool that you've got a collection. But I know there are a lot of really dedicated fans of Project Onward out there. So
yeah,
yeah, I definitely want to keep this series going. I'd love to eventually interview every artist, but I think that might be a great idea for future shows too.
yeah. Well, you could interview me anytime once you go through the list,
Awesome, Bill. Well, I definitely want to at least hang out and talk more about music with you, because that's something.
Okay, cool. I gave Michelle a disc to give you guys from of Pocius's band.
Oh God, yeah. I looked up some old clips of them actually, because I know he's really. I mean, he's a punk rock pioneer. He like predates the Ramones. I mean, he was the first.
Yeah,
His band was kind of like the first punk band in Chicago, and
yeah.
man, they were pretty gnarly. And he's still Mike Pocius, for anyone who doesn't know, a longtime volunteer at Project Onward, virtual denizen of the Chicago punk rock scene, particularly on the South Side. And
Yeah.
he still has that spirit, man. It's really amazing.
Oh, yeah. He's a neighbor.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely
Yeah,
want
yeah. So that's even better. We have cookouts over there every once in a while with Project Onward members.
awesome. Yeah, I'd love to sit in on one of those for sure. Well,
Okay. Well,
cool.
you'll
Yeah,
be.
I'd love to, and yeah, so you've got some of his music. You gave Michelle a copy of some of it.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I definitely want to hear that. Chicago must have been a pretty exciting place to move to, considering you're such a fan of punk and noise music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw.
A long, long legacy. Knoxville's produced some great acts too. Really,
Yeah.
Knoxville and Memphis both have a lot of really great kind of alternative and punk rock scenes going on there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember seeing Jesus Lizard in Knoxville and seeing Minor Threat
Awesome.
and later Fugazi, of course, which became from Minor Threat.
Yeah,
But
Ian MacKay's project after that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was one band called Rednecks in Pain that used to come up from a small city in Tennessee
Huh.
and used to play. They were really good too.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. There was a great band out of Knoxville that were kind of popular in the '90s called Super Drag. Do you remember that band?
Oh, Super Drag. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They were more kind of power pop, but they were still could be pretty aggressive at times. I love their stuff.
Yeah, there were the Judy Bats too.
Oh, the Judy Bats, absolutely. Yeah, really great kind of college rock band. That's awesome. Yeah, in Chicago, of course, you got, Naked Ray Gun. You got all of Albini's projects, Big Black and Shellac, and so much cool stuff. I'm glad that you appreciate that as much as I do.
Oh, I do. I do.
All right. Well, Instagram started counting down here, so we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. But I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to thank, of course, Bill Douglas, elder statesman and a prolific, incredible artist at Project Onward, for joining us. Matt and Michelle for directing and doing the videography here today. All of the incredible staff and volunteers at Project Onward, and all of you for watching and continuing to support such a wonderful organization. Bill, I look forward to talking to you again real soon. And yeah, once we get there, everyone else, I would love to do another installment, because again, we could go another hour easily.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got more work to show.
Awesome. Well, we'll all look forward to hearing it. In the meantime, go to projectonward.org and check out Bill on Instagram. It's William C. Douglas. Is that right?
William C. Douglas Art.
William C. Douglas Art. Excellent. Everybody check it out and follow his Instagram to see some more great art from Bill, because we're all such huge fans. Bill, thank you so much. We'll see you again real soon.
Okay, see ya.
All right, bye.
Bye.